Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. And again, we have a special person here. You know, I don't know. It's a bit. This one's a bit spicy. So I don't know how dangerous he is. But his name is Albert Nurenberg. I've tried to pronounce that the best way I can. So if I've pronounced it wrong, Albert, please tell me off and tell me how to say correctly. But welcome.
I would call that a perfect pronunciation. And I by the way, I should make sure that you like to be called Eli. Is it Eli?
It is Eli. It is.
Yes. I had a grandfather named Eli, so I already have closer to you.
Great minds think alike. I like that. Already I'm liking Albert in a big way. All right, Albert. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself because you can do it far better than I.
Yeah. Okay. Well. I should probably explain that, because of the nature of this podcast, that I think my story is a bit strange. I begin by being a terrible writer. I was incapable of handwriting, and I think that many of my teachers assumed that I was both stupid and a loser of some kind, for a couple of reasons. One is that I was bilingual at a young age. I could speak French and English, which is not that weird, but I was in a little bit of a racist environment where they thought, well, if you speak French, you can't speak English. And one of my first experiences was being put into remedial English in the boiler room of my high school with very, very troubled people. But what that did is it actually changed my life. I would later go on to become the editor-in-chief of my university newspaper. I became a reporter. I became the youngest city columnist in North America at a particular time. I was a daily columnist for a newspaper. Then I became a television documentarian. I can't even pronounce my own title. And after that, I got into some really strange things. Like I became a laughologist, an expert on the nature of laughter and the promotion of laughter. And these days, I'm much more of a hypnologist, which is a hypnotist who promotes everyday hypnosis as opposed to the sort of mystical concept of sort of private hypnosis.
Okay.
And in the end, I become a filmmaker who has made a few, without tooting my horn too much, a few award-winning films. But the more interesting thing about the films is that they are considered to be seminal in the sense that I made the first documentary about laughter, and I made the first documentary about stupidity. So I'm bringing us full circle because I was considered an expert on stupidity from a very young age because people thought I was very stupid.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you went full circle, right? And you
Yes.
came back and did it professionally.
Yes. If you Google me, you'll see that I'm considered to be a stupidity expert. And I always say that cuts both ways.
Really? I never knew it existed, but hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
And anything beyond that? How did your journey go beyond that? So stupidity.
I think the weird thing about me is that, and I think it's still very true, is that I am endeavoring to do things that people consider to be impossible. I'll give you an example. In hypnosis, I am known for something called the Hypnotic Bar. I noticed that I worked briefly in a rehab. And while I was working for only a couple of years at a rehab, almost 7 or 8 people died from overdoses. They weren't physically at the rehab; they were in and out. Then I did research and found out that more people are dying of drug and alcohol toxicity or overdoses than at any other time in human history.
Mm-hmm.
And as a hypnotist, I had observed that there's an old trick, and actually your compatriots here would probably be familiar with, of course, Darren Brown, the famous hypnotist, illusionist. He does an old hypnotist trick where you can hypnotize people to be drunk.
Okay.
Now, I can assure you, as crazy as it sounds, that this is real. When you hypnotize people to be drunk, they are drunk. They feel drunk.
You're not going to tell me you can hypnotize people not to be drunk?
I can do both.
Wow.
I can hypnotize people to be drunk, and I can hypnotize drunk people to be more sober. But if they're really drunk,
Of course.
forget it. But I had this idea. Why not create a bar? So this is an example of something impossible. Why not create a bar where instead of feeding people toxic alcohol, which is, on par with paint thinner, so it's like a solvent.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You hypnotize them to be drunk. They have this episode of great fun, laughing, all the things that drunk people do. And then you wake them up from the state and they are entirely sober and they can drive home.
Hold on. Let's rewind. When you say bar, are you talking about like a bar as in you go in like a drinking bar? Like a... Right. And you're saying instead of having a normal bar with alcohol, they go in, they're hypnotized to be drunk so they don't get the effects permanently from... Wow. And you came up with this idea?
I came up with this. I mean, I'm not the first hypnotist to figure out that you can hypnotize people to be drunk. It's an old trick. I have found 19th century posters of people doing this, demonstrating that you can get people drunk. They're funny, very funny posters. And then, like I said, Darren Brown has done some dramatic, famous illustrations. He takes a university student and makes him drunk for hours, and the fellow is entirely sober. So, but I started thinking what I would do as a stunt is I would challenge a well-known bar in town to bring me in. Okay. And I would take the clientele who was at that point sober, hypnotize them to be drunk, give them shots of water where they're told they're drinking tequila, and then they would get steadily drunker throughout the night. And at no time are they ever drinking actual alcohol. And so this is my theory, that most of the effects of drugs and alcohol are all in the mind, in the mind.
Can I just stop you there?
Of course.
I'm really interested. When you first went to the first bar and you pitched to them this idea, what was the first reaction when you said this?
Well, see, I'm used to this because everywhere I've gone in life, people have often said, like I say, right back to people thinking I was a moron when I was 13, have always said that, they laugh about it. It's like, it sounds like a crazy idea. So they thought it was a stunt, that I would use some magician's technique to make people appear as if they were drunk when they were not. But I'm telling you, when we do it, and when I do this regularly now, we put people through sobriety tests. We try to get them to walk a straight line, get them to touch their own noses. They usually cannot do it. They cannot pass common sobriety tests, even though they are only hypnotized. Now, there is a little bit of a catch, is that I require good hypnotic subjects. I can't do this with anyone, but I can do this.
What makes them good subjects?
That's a big question. But I would say about a quarter of the population are good hypnotic subjects, and there's debate. I would say it has a lot to do with schooling. So if you drop me, let's say, in rural India, okay, I would probably discover that 80-90% of the people are great hypnotic subjects because they have not been intensely schooled. Same thing in Africa. Rural Africa, people are great hypnotic subjects. Put me in the cities, put me in Nairobi, suddenly people are harder to hypnotize. And I think this is because schools train us out of daydreaming. Naturally, people are daydreamers. We daydream all the time. When I shot a documentary in Africa, and I was amazed that I would often see people standing in fields staring at the sky. It was so amazing to me, I ran out and interviewed somebody who was standing in the middle of a field. I asked them what they were doing.
My God.
But that's a uniquely rural phenomena, this idea of you can just stand and daydream. So this is the first lesson that students are trained out of. So the average person, there's a huge correlation between the ability to daydream deeply and the ability to go into hypnotic trance.
I hear you.
So to answer your question, when I do the hypnotic bar, I will select the best hypnotic subjects. They will get drunk. I can't do it with 100% of the people, but I can do it with a good chunk.
So is this to do with making good subjects? Is something to do with the belief system, their belief system? So from a point of view where, be it a situation where they believe heavily in the state of play when it comes to religion, or a state of play when it comes to their family life, or is there something? I know you've tried to describe the best you can making good subjects, but is it anything to do with like a belief system, or am I going in the wrong direction?
There's something there. I would say that, I mean, these things are studied, and there's sort of a list of factors that will usually make someone a better hypnotic subject. So for example, the ability to visualize. So artists tend to be great hypnotic subjects.
Okay.
There's a certain age where people are better hypnotic subjects, probably 18 to 30.
So people that are quite creative.
People that are creative can often be better hypnotic subjects. People, but then there's also a darker side. People who experience childhood trauma tend to be better hypnotic subjects, and people who experience PTSD tend to be better hypnotic subjects. Cultures and race are factors as well, but that's probably because those things factor into trauma and other issues as well.
So these are people that really have a kind of strength of visualization.
Yes.
So like you're saying, trauma, dealing with the past, flashbacks. They get a lot of flashbacks, visualization again, or creative people again, very good artists, be that musicians, whatever, visualization. They all use a form of visualization. Would that be correct?
That'd be correct, and those people are arguably using self-hypnosis.
Yeah.
And we love our artists who are able to create powerful, vivid, in a sense, dreamlike artistic expressions, either in song, in film, or in writing. And so I do think there's a correlation between talent often and hypnosis, the ability to hypnotize. But I think there's a kind of this is where people get confused, because there's a social bias where people perceive hypnotizability. They often connect it to either gullibility or the idea of weak-mindedness. Somehow a hypnotizable person is very weak-minded. That we sort of think, oh, if you're hypnotizable, you're not so smart and not so talented. That is false. The strongest minded people, because hypnosis is a voluntary state, meaning I might say that again, sorry.
Form of trust.
Yeah. So if you were to do hypnosis, you're like, okay, at this moment, I'm agreeing to attempt hypnosis. So I let my guard down and I enter into the process. So I'll give you like a really clear example. One of the best hypnotic subjects in the world is Mike Tyson.
Really?
Mike Tyson, there's an amazing video. Mike Tyson was probably hypnotized before every fight, which could have been a little terrifying if you were his opponent, because I think the hypnosis was, well, he would often talk about how he was hypnotized to feel that he was a giant among men, often because he was facing opponents that were taller than him, and that also that he was that he possessed immense power, which apparently he did. But he's a fabulous hypnotic subject, and he's also very proud. He's very proud of the fact that he used hypnosis to achieve victory. I don't know why this is not better known, but I mean, it's not like he doesn't hide it. Wow. It's just people don't talk about it too much.
And it's true, we do resemble, hypnosis with weak-minded people. It is a thing that people do think in general. So for you to bring up that information to do with Mike Tyson is really flipping it on its head.
Not just Mike Tyson, but I would say some of the great, I mean, I don't know if we'd consider Mike Tyson to be a great intellectual, but also there are some great intellectuals who are also very hypnotizable. There is no hypnotizability is, like I said, it's like more a question of like, are you good at badminton? That doesn't mean that it reflects in any way on the rest of your life. Yeah. If you're good at going into trance, you're good at going into trance. It does not mean you're stupid or even gullible. In that state, though, while you are hypnotized, because one of the characteristics of a hypnotized person is a high state of suggestibility. At that moment, they are more gullible or credulous, as you might say. But that doesn't mean that generally they are that way.
Well, it's quite fascinating. Now, let's go back a bit. So we've got the hypnosis with the bar. That's quite unusual, quite shocking.
And like I said, people think it's impossible. People think that the guy that you're interviewing right now is just making stuff up. It can't be possible. Why would I spend, I don't know what the price of alcohol is right now in London. Why would I spend £8 on a beer if I could just get it for free?
Oh yeah, totally right. So we've dealt with that. Now, starting to know your character, I know you've done other weird and wonderful projects. So you've done the bar. What other projects have you done when it comes to hypnosis?
The other thing is like a really crazy film I'm working on right now, and it's hard, a little hard to explain, but also perceived as impossible.
Okay.
So, in a particular form of hypnotic trance, a very specific hypnotic trance, it is possible to. This sounds kind of strange, but it is possible to bring people to anyone who is in that trance, to a very powerful orgasm. And very quickly. So let me give you an example. The reason why it's impossible is there's a lot of research, particularly around female orgasm, which says you simply cannot bring women, even with the best forms of stimulation, to orgasm in less than 13 minutes and 45 seconds. I did the research for this film. And I have demonstrated, you can look it up, that you can bring women who are hypnotized, and men, by the way, or any gender, to orgasm in less than 1 minute.
Really?
Yes.
Well, consistently. Consistently.
If they are capable of the right trance, consistently, and even less than a minute, actually, would be the correct answer. And so this, I believe that hypnosis, or what you might call hypnotic sexuality, can break all the rules of sexuality. We sort of believe that there's a bunch of things that you just can't change, and I think you can. There's other examples with flexibility. You can hypnotize a woman to have an orgasm as a man, and vice versa. There's a bunch of crazy things. So I'm actually making a documentary right now called "Make Orgasms, Not War," where I'm following a woman who's trying to have every possible orgasm in the world. She's had 1 minute orgasm, a mangasm, orgasm as a man. She's had a laughgasm, where she laughs her way to orgasm. She's had multiple orgasms in a short period of time, like 30 in about 10 minutes. But it's partly to demonstrate the flexible state of hypnotic sexuality. I think that's her passion. So I'm making a documentary about her. But again, when I tell people about this, and I think people listening to the show will go, that doesn't sound possible, or this guy is a bullshitter. But I assure you that it is true. Okay,
let's go with that. How does that work? So for her to have these multiple type of orgasms, is it a situation you have to be there to do that, or have you taught her to do it herself, or what's the process for that?
There's a few answers to that question. So so anybody who can achieve this trance can likely do it, and the trance is not that rare. It's not that hard to do, but it is a deeper trance. The answer is that she can, at first, I would do it over. She went to a workshop I did online on Zoom, and she had a huge orgasm and thought, oh, I have to know more. That's how it started. Then I've worked with, because of the film, I've worked with her in person, but then she developed her own technique where she can actually give herself. But I think just like in life, it is often better to have other people provide you with orgasms than to just do it yourself. It is similar that I think she prefers when other people would hypnotize her to orgasm rather than doing it herself. But yes, she can do it herself. And I think arguably a lot of people can, though they don't know it.
Okay, so how did this project come about? So one day you decided, right, I'm going to do this. What happened for that to take effect? That crazy, the typical listeners. I'm starting to understand this. This guy is absolutely fortified and nutty. So this is why I'm asking these crazy questions. Like, how do you actually think of getting to this stage to do these types of how can I say, hypnosis orgasm? So what happened when you said the aha moment? What happened?
That's a really good question. There was a bit of an evolution, but the best explanation is that if you were to go to Las Vegas, let's say this is maybe more like 10 years ago, it was not uncommon that so you can go to these late night stage hypnosis shows. And I mentioned Las Vegas simply because there's a lot of stage hypnosis there. Often at the end of the show, as a sort of final stunt, the hypnotist would say, when I count down to 10, everyone on stage will have a huge orgasm. Now, I attended one of these shows, and I was like, I knew it was possible because hypnotists observe that sometimes these things happen by accident. They're often with female hypnotists will have male clients observe that they develop, this sounds weird, erections, but involuntarily. They weren't even thinking necessarily sexual thoughts.
Okay.
So I'll give you a deeper explanation because this is really closer to the truth.
Please.
So I did a TEDx on hypnosis, which is actually another impossible thing. It is the most watched TEDx in all history on hypnosis. It has right now at 12 million views. It's called "Is Hypnosis Fake?" Now, people often say to me, why is it the most watched TEDx in hypnosis? And I say, well, it is my charisma. It's not my charisma. Joking. It is because I am the first person in a public way to describe a working model of really how hypnosis works, which links dreaming and hypnosis.
Wow.
There is some science to show that dreaming behavior connects to deep trance behavior. Now, this will bring us back to sexuality in a second. So a theory about how, if you think about sexual acts, like how do humans, or any animal for that matter, how do they know what to do in sex? Like how does a monkey know what to do?
Yeah. How
does a dog know what to do? They actually have had unconscious dreams that sort of lead the way. So, and similarly, human beings have, and this is just like a lesser known or lesser not well talked about aspect of human behavior. Most boys, but it's just more well known in boys, but girls as well, have a phenomenon called wet dreams, where when they're usually adolescents, they have dreams that are sexual in nature.
Yeah.
But what is likely is those dreams are programming you to kind of roughly know how to have sex, because the survival of the species depends on it. If you did sex wrong, you won't procreate and the species will die.
Yeah.
So, because hypnotic trance imitates dreaming, it can imitate wet dreaming.
That makes sense.
There you go. And when you understand that, everything unrolls. So if you can, now I wouldn't say that hypnotic orgasms are like wet dreams, but they are the same principle.
Yeah.
That you're in the dream state where more things are possible. And in dreams, you can do weird things like you can fly and you can meet famous people. So similarly, in hypnotic states, you can actually fly. And I do this with some clients where I give them flying orgasms where they fly.
Wow.
Which they really like.
My God. Absolutely crazy. So this is how you've going through these stages and doing this TEDx and you thought, right, maybe I should do a documentary and do it in a different way. Hence, that's what you're doing now.
There's also part of what motivated me is that there's a dilemma. Part of the dilemma is that there are people, like for example, there's a phenomenon you may be familiar with called the pickup PUAs, pickup artists. It's a bigger thing, I think, in America than probably in Europe, but this is where men are trained in high-priced workshops to pick up women in bars. And sometimes they use hypnotic techniques because they believe that it will raise their rate of success. These people are sometimes trained in hypnotic sexuality techniques without an ethical code. I'll give you an example. If you could meet somebody and you could give them 37 orgasms where you tell them you're going to associate me with orgasms, and that would be a way to manipulate somebody. And that's exactly what some people do. So hypnotists were aware of this ethical dilemma, that there's sort of bad things going on. So I knew about that story. And then I started to recognize that what we're actually looking at, and why this seems so far-fetched and unbelievable, is that I think we are looking at actually the sexual programming codes for human beings. Meaning, like, we think, so let me explain what I mean. Most people do not know how they arrive at their sexuality. Some people do because they were interfered with, but most people just know, like, you know, I like this, I like that. This turns me on. They don't know why. And I had a weird experience. So this is, I know I've been going on, but this will wrap it up. When I was a reporter, there was a crazy story that happened in Montreal, in a suburb of Montreal, where an owl, a very large owl, was attacking women. And when a big owl attacks people, it's dangerous because owls are powerful. This owl would come screeching out of the sky and rip up women's scalps.
Wow.
Anyways, the story goes, they brought in an ornithologist, and I was like reporting on it, so I remembered the story. An expert in owls, and the owl expert explained it very simply, and he said, birds imprint sexually very quickly. There's a little window, 10 or 15 seconds apparently. They're having a particular experience, and that sets their sexual destiny for life. So likely what happened is this owl fell out of its nest when it was young. A woman, and the weird thing about the story is that the owl only attacked brunettes. It didn't attack blondes.
Really?
They figured that out somehow. So the explanation was the owl was likely rescued by a woman with dark hair, brown hair. For the rest of its life, the owl is trying to mate with the top of women's heads.
Okay.
Who have brown hair. And I talk about a maladaptive sexuality. But I started to ask sexuality experts, if birds imprint in these sort of sudden moments, how do humans imprint? And I realized that they don't know, that this is not well understood. And it may be something similar, meaning as you go through life, you have a moment or a series of moments that create your sexual desire or your sexual pattern for life. You have no say in the matter. You just negotiate or wrestle with it the rest of your life. And I started thinking, wait a second, in hypnosis, we know how to change that. I work with something called the shamegasm. And actually this will be of immediate relevance to your viewers because, what's the big show that's sweeping Netflix right now? Baby Reindeer. Okay, wow. So this is, cover your ears if you haven't seen the show or you haven't got through the show, but I think it's the 5th or 6th episode. The main character has a shamegasm. He has an orgasm about a woman that he hates, while he also has a woman that he loves. And he cannot understand why shame would drive him to orgasm.
This is interesting.
Yes. So I started interviewing a bunch of my clients, and I found out, I think 95%, I'm generalizing, but 95% of my male clients all had some form of shamegasm, meaning shame was a critical component of their orgasm. And they just thought, well, that's the way I am. That's just the way I grew up. And it can't be changed, but it can.
You know what? It, fascinating as it is, there's so much to this hypnotism that I just never knew. Um, what I want to find out is how you got to this stage of being so inquisitive when it comes to really delving in. And now, obviously, you said at the beginning, to do with your childhood, it was a situation where you went through quite a lot of hard things going through your childhood. You was a certain way, and you was focused on being a certain way. And we spoke about this just at the before the podcast. So let's go back, because I'm trying to delve in how you're so inquisitive. Where did this all start? This inquisitivity, when you said, and let's start with that, and then we can go with the flow, because I want to find out about you, and because I know you believe you have certain neurodivergence to yourself. So let's talk about that. Let's delve in a bit more. So let's go way back and let's start.
I should just explain that I think for me, trouble started in high school, as I mentioned, partly because I was bilingual. It sounds strange, but and I also think I was maybe intellectually awkward. I've seen pictures of myself when I was a kid, and I was just like, it looked like I was constantly thinking. I was a playful kid and I played sports, but I think even during sports, I'm there like, analyzing what's going on. I was a very I was overthinking a lot as a kid. But I think the critical experience for me was this teacher, like I said, who I think was a bit racist, in the sense he was racist against French people.
Okay.
He thought that because I could speak French, I could not speak English, put me in remedial English, which was sort of like being put in a prison. It was like it wasn't a classroom. It was like I said, it was in the furnace room of the building.
Wow. And
with like maybe two other kids who were obviously, in a sense, I would say more challenged. Mm-hmm. And I think at that moment, I think it was very demoralizing. I was very demoralized because I thought I could speak English fine. And I became aware, it showed me that there was a reality going on which did not have expression, as the best way if I could explain it. And that has followed me throughout my life, where same thing with hypnosis. When I did the TEDx, I was like, other people study hypnosis, but I went into it and I was like, there's something the public does not know that they should know. And I've done that throughout. When I made a documentary about stupidity, same thing. There's something that the public doesn't know about stupidity that they should know. I made a documentary about laughter. I make films. The documentaries I make are considered to be obvious subjects, hiding in plain sight. That's the common denominator. Laughter, we see it everywhere. Stupidity, we see it everywhere. But nobody had made films about these things, like, shockingly. So, sorry. Then what happens is I enter into this contradictory period where I go into one school and they put me back a grade because they think I'm a moron. Mm-hmm. And then I go to the next school and they actually put me back into the normal grade. And then the teachers go, your kid is not a moron, kid's actually intelligent, and they put me ahead a grade.
Can I just stop you there just for a second? You said that, you've been put back because of you're a moron. What was it that made them think, from their point of view, you was a moron? What was it that you were doing from their point of view that made them feel, or made you feel, so-called like a moron, which you wasn't?
I think I was intensely shy, and I couldn't, if a teacher would ask me to speak, I would be awkward and would not express myself well. I just didn't have tools for expression. So I think that's that led to it. But I think having this negative experience, which this teacher, I had one teacher just seemed to have it in for me for no reason. That, I think, bruised my confidence. And then I just played the part of like the dumb kid. And then until other people discovered I wasn't that dumb.
And what age are we talking about? When did this all happen? Is it as far as you can remember, or did this start to hit your confidence at a specific age?
More than 12 or 13. I think before that I've had some of my awkwardness is like I just have weird weaknesses in that. For example, I have terrible handwriting no matter what I do. If I had been forced in university or anywhere else to write essays by hand, I would have failed miserably. I just was incapable of it, and luckily computers came along, and yeah, so that saved me. But I could not write by hand to save my life, literally.
And it wasn't a situation it wasn't because you wasn't trying. It was just a situation you had this problem with just writing. And was it a situation where you tried and you got the help, but you still had this ongoing issue when it came to that?
I think in some ways it was a stress issue. I think that I was stressed into feeling, and I was in hypnosis. We see this phenomena where people will adopt a role that society kind of creates for them. So I think disappointed teachers or frustrated teachers made me feel, and that I just was a bad writer and a bad student in some cases, and that became bad handwriting. I think somebody said to me, "It's because you're rushing." It was a friend who said this to me, and I found that was true. As soon as I really slowed down, I could kind of write. So I think it was a stress condition. And yeah, so I think that genuinely, but all these experiences, and also I had trauma when I was 14, I should explain too. What I think these things did for me is they kind of put me in a different world, like in a sense, a perceptual different world. I think when some people go to school or university, they are in that room, they are linearly present. And I was aware that there were other realities, as strange as that sounds.
Okay.
And that's
just explain a bit more on that. Realities. What do you mean by other realities?
I think now as a hypnotist, I would understand that, like, you and I are having a conscious conversation, but there also may be unconscious aspects to it as well. So that would be like another reality. The other aspect would just simply be, simply a kid recognizing that although the teacher perceives me as stupid, I may also be intelligent, But so that was, and that my reality might have value, though at that time, because you're so overwhelmed, I don't think I even got there. I didn't quite get to the point where I was like, even though the teacher thinks I'm stupid, I might be smart.
And you say sometimes you were overwhelmed. Overwhelmed in what way? That
I would say stress. I was for me, school was generally a terrifying experience. I think other people had it much worse. Had much worse.
Mm-hmm.
I just think I just was aware that it was. I was just afraid of my teachers, afraid of school. It was a nerve-wracking experience, and I think that contributed to me not performance. I don't think that, some people have sort of said to me at different times, I think I might be a little bit on what they say on the spectrum, but I'm not so sure. I think everyone's on the spectrum, so I think what I learned I'm very flexible, because I actually spent years as an actor, and I think I can kind of play any part. If you want me to be really linear and school-like, I can do that. If you want me to be in the world of imagination, I can do that too. So I think I'm a chameleon of sorts.
And was that taken? And so when you took on this acting role, was it a situation where it just helped you because you, in a way, you was isolated when you was growing up, and also you were seen as the moron, and you were seen as this, and you were seen as that. Why did you take on the acting role? Was it a situation so you can actually fulfill certain roles within your life, for instance?
That is correct, but I don't think I thought of it that way. I think it just happened coincidentally. I think I was lucky enough to live in a city where I just don't want to take up too much time, but I joined a workshop that was led by Keith Johnstone, who's actually the father of modern improv. He's actually originally from London, and he moved to Canada. That's how I met him. But in Canada, people didn't realize at the time how great he was, and I happened to go to his workshops regularly. Was trained in improv. That's how I learned acting. And because other people were like, what's the big deal? They didn't hang around. So it was often just me and Keith Johnstone at the workshop. And so he really took me under his wing and trained me well. That was my first sort of acting. And then I started to realize improv gave you all these choices.
Okay.
And that led to some real changes in my life. I could play more confident people. People often ask me, why are you so confident you can make a feature documentary about stupidity? Well, it's partly, the idea of the role. I can play the role of somebody who's confident enough to make that film. And so that was one of the things that acting taught me. And then the other is, acting has helped me understand hypnosis because in a weird way, there's some connections. I won't go into it because unless you want me to, it takes a long time to explain. But I think I made a whole documentary about acting called You Are What You Act. And it's funny. Remember I said everything I've done is impossible. When I pitched it, people said, so the film is about the idea that the poses we hold.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. If you hold this pose, which is thumbs up, you tend to see the world in a more optimistic way, what you see in front of you, just when you're holding the pose.
Okay.
When you hold this pose, thumbs down, you are the reverse. You're more negative towards what's in front of you. This phenomena is called embodied cognition. The body causes the brain to distort the way it thinks.
Wow.
So I wanted to make a film about this, such a great subject, because I'm like, everybody, this is back when before power posing was known. I was like, what a great subject for a film. I go to the network and I say, I want to make a film so that every human gesture, I'll give you an example. Looking up makes you more optimistic. Looking down makes you more depressed. Putting your shoulders back makes you more confident. Looking into the distance improves executive function.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, this is a great subject for a film. And of course, the network said, no, that's stupid. When I made Stupidity, the network said, that's a stupid idea. They said, until I made the film, and it was like a ratings blockbuster as documentaries go. Anyways, to make a long story short, when I made So You Are What You Act, this is how I got it commissioned. I was like, oh, I got to find a better example of the phenomena. I'm reading the newspaper one day, and I read an article about Tom Cruise, actually also, I don't know, a lot of this relates to London, UK. Tom Cruise was visiting London. He was shooting a film in London. And I guess, I can't remember the neighborhood he was in, but he was somewhere in London, and he was leaving either a restaurant, I think he was leaving a restaurant, or he was leaving a building, and he heard a woman scream. That woman was being mugged by two men. She stepped out of her car. She had a lot of jewelry, and two men attacked her.
Okay.
Tom Cruise was actually with his bodyguards, but he heard her scream, and he was very good at running. Tom Cruise, he ran, and as he ran towards the muggers, they saw Tom Cruise running towards them, and they ran away. Wow. And they didn't succeed in mugging her. And so I looked it up, and I found Tom Cruise has not done this but once, but actually 6 times. Really? Where people, not saving people from muggers, but a woman was in a hit and run accident in Los Angeles. She's lying in the road, everybody's staring at her, nobody knows what to do. A car pulls out, Tom Cruise jumps out and goes to her. A boat was burning and sinking somewhere. I can't remember where exactly another boat pulls up. It's Tom Cruise. And I don't think Tom Cruise is a nice person, but he is, in real life, has rescued people. But he's not the only one. Kate Winslet carried Richard Branson's mother or grandmother. I can't remember. I think mother. She carried Richard Branson's mother out of a burning building. You know, Richard Branson has a mansion on his own island, Necker Island. Anyways, that mansion was hit by lightning, started to burn down. Kate Winslet was staying there. The whole house is burning down. The Richard Branson's mother's elderly. She can't get out. Kate Winslet picked her up, carried her out of the building.
My God.
The common denominator I found in this pattern, so Kate Winslet's done this, Harrison Ford has done it, Vin Diesel has done it, and the common denominator is they're generally actors that do their own stunts, or they're these sort of physical style actors. And the idea was, because they embody heroism, when they are faced with a dangerous situation, they are more inclined to act. And I have found this to be true. And that the film I made, You Are What You Act, is all about that. And so I went back to the network and I said, instead of saying I could make a film about embodied cognition, a new field of emerging science, I said, what if I made a film and I got you Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, and Kate Winslet? What do you think of that?
Wow.
And suddenly they were interested, and then they gave me the money. And so I was even like playing the part of somebody who had a great idea for a film. You know, it was all acting.
That's amazing. So let's just look back at that then. So it was a situation you went through certain issues going through as a kid, and you struggled with many things. That led on to you actually, and you didn't know at the time, but take acting so you can fulfill how you wanted to fulfill as a person, as a human being in certain situations, basically.
It made me more flexible. It
Yeah.
made me, for example, if I go into a pitch meeting with network executives, I know I have a better chance if I'm more confident and clear.
Yeah.
And acting helped me that way. Yes.
I see that, because there's a lot of people that struggle, and we all have struggle with certain things. I mean, some people struggle, in a meeting, just meeting a new partner, etc. But I can see how acting can help from the point of view, because you're in so-called somebody else's shoes.
That's right. And I think the other interesting thing about acting is that when I made the film, I studied this, is that people are actually phobic around acting. So people have an irrational fear of drama. You would think acting is such I found it amazing. To be trained in acting is an advantage across the board. I mean, all these people, Richard Gadd is an actor. Russell Brand is an actor. People that are at the top of, I think Tony Blair probably did some acting too. People at the top of persuasion and influence usually have acting training, because it's an advantage. Of course it is. But so why doesn't everybody do it? Usually one explanation is it's taught badly in high school. It's taught so badly that people, they don't want to do Shakespeare and they don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But actually there's a deeper reason, which is interesting. More profound. It's not, we can't blame it all on high school teachers. It probably can be explained by the theory of mind. So the theory of mind, as you may know, is a theory that children until the age of 6 do not have minds, in a way. So until children are about 5 or 6, they are not aware of other people's minds. That's the best way of explaining it.
Okay.
And that they could be judged. So for example, when I'm 5, I don't care what other people think. Basically, I'm care that they're big and they could hurt me, but I'm not afraid of their judgment. Yeah. Suddenly around 5 or 6, I develop a mind, and I can see that other people are judging or perceiving me.
I see.
And for most kids, that delicate time becomes negative. And when I looked at a really interesting pattern, which I think you might find, I'm hoping you'll find fascinating. So these heroic actors, Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling is another example, who also rescued somebody. But I found out that there was a pattern in their lives, particularly in the men. And that pattern was, so Tom Cruise is the only boy in a family either of 4 or 5 kids, and all the other kids are sisters.
Okay.
And when Tom Cruise tells the story of why he became an actor, he said, well, I had these sisters and they would encourage me to perform. And I think he had a supportive audience at this critical stage. So when Tom Cruise is 5 or 6,
that's true.
The rest of us face the judge. We feel the minds of others negatively judging us.
Yeah.
But Ryan Gosling, 3 sisters. So these guys, they had supportive sisters, and we know probably young girls are going to be more supportive than young boys. Like, I have a friend who grew up with 7 brothers, and he said all he remembers was being beaten up relentlessly. Experience.
No, it's true. I've had conversations in the past with people before, talking about as we grew up as kids, especially when it comes in when we talk about disciplining our kids in such a way. I was always taught, if you don't do certain things by the age of 7, then you're going to have problems beyond that age. And I've spoken not only with family with that regard, but outside of the family, and this is said round about the age of 7 is when things take a setting. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think that's, again, theory of mind. Before that, kids do not know, they don't understand the idea of minds. They don't understand, like, I'm over here thinking and you're over there thinking, and you can see me and judge me. They're just in a weird movie of their own making until then. And so that's what theory of mind really matters, in my opinion, and it explains a lot.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you've gone through so much and this is where I wanted to get how you think, because the thing is that you have the guts to go through and ask a bar owner, how about doing this and how about doing that, something that nobody would have the guts to do it, and as well as many other things. I thought, okay, let's find out how we can do that. And obviously, because you was an actor, you're able to take on different personas, right? And hey, it doesn't matter if someone laughs at you, because they're not laughing at you, they're laughing at
the role you're playing.
Whatever you're playing. And that is a work of genius, and I can see how that works. So instead of people trying to be them and try to attack a certain situation over and over again and failing, it can simply be done from a point of view. You step out of your own body, put someone else within your body. It doesn't matter what happens to them. It doesn't matter if anybody laughs at them, because obviously it's a role, right? And I can see how that works.
And you know what this brings us back to is that I made this documentary, Laughology, which was the first feature documentary about laughter. And you'd ask yourself, why is laughter such a big deal? Because before we could laugh, we could only be one thing. We are the animal we are. But what happened when mammals started to laugh, and humans in particular, it gave us the ability to play. And when we play, we can play at, so for example, dogs or humans play at aggressive or submissive roles. I can act like the big dog, I can act like the small dog. And there's obviously an evolutionary advantage. Like, you can see this apparently with big cats. So for example, like a jaguar will generally defeat a crocodile, or caiman, I think is what they often go after, even though the caiman's a pretty ferocious animal, because the jaguar has evolved to be very playful, to look at the angles, to try to figure things out. And the crocodile just does fixed action patterns. It just does, like, it bites things, and so this ability to play, one of the things I'm known for is I say that laughter is the greatest revolution that ever happened on this planet. And the reason it is because, not because laughter is fun, which it is, it's because it opened the doors to play. Laughter is a play signal. Specifically in mammals, it's about showing that you're playing, not fighting. And as soon as you can show that, the possibilities become big. And take it a step further, and you can also have this idea of the multiplicity of roles. And I also think this is a beautiful thing in life. Like, I think in a marriage, for example, you hear people describe their partner in loving ways. They will describe a multiplicity of roles. He's a good father. He's a tender lover. He's a friend. He supports it. But these are ultimately different roles. And so again, the fact that we are phobic around theater, I think, is unfortunate, and that people should stop being that way. They should be more willing to take, like, if you take an improv course, a good one, it is empowering. Everybody should learn improv. It should be in schools. In fact, it is in some places. It is in schools, but it should be in every school.
Oh no, I totally right. I mean, I see the power in that, and it could help me in certain situations because I have a fear of certain situations. Like, for instance, and the listeners don't know this, I'm very good in groups, very good one-to-one, very confident. I can handle conversation and bring positive situations out of it. But standing on a stage is another thing altogether. Knees are like jelly, blah 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 blah, and my voice. And but I tell you what,
can I tell you why? Can I tell you why? Because you'll find it interesting.
Yeah, go on. You come. Tell me.
As a hypnotist, I deal with this all the time, stage fright, and the explanation is was both simple and fascinating. The explanation is that it is rare for any mammal or any animal for that matter to experience. So when would you experience you being tracked by the eyes of other animals? So when you go on stage, suddenly you can feel the eyes of other animals all at the same time. So when would you experience that on the savannah? It would be only if you are being hunted. So you were experiencing a kind of psychological overload where, so you go on stage and you can feel eyes fixing on you, but maybe now it's 100 sets of eyes fixing on you. And that is psychological overwhelm until you basically go straight through it, until you experience, like, I did that and I did not die, and now I'm going to be okay. And even good public speakers will report that they still find going up on stage nerve-wracking.
No, totally right. I've spoken to a lot of good speakers, and I know quite a few, and they all say the same thing, is that they still have their days. They're still, their stomachs in knots, etc., and going up there. But hold on a minute. But when you go up there, you're so confident. You're very, your arms are going and you're walking and pacing and no, Eli, I'm still. So I get that. I understand that. I don't believe them, but I do get that. And I think it's the last frontier for me that I've got to deal with. I've been working on myself just like everybody else in life, with certain things. So I find it very interesting when it comes to taking yourself out, when it comes to acting and playing these different roles. I think there's power in that, to get you to another stage in your life that you've always suffered from. And I totally agree with you. By doing an acting course or something similar, it could help your life. You don't even have to take it because you want to be an actor. You take it because you want to reenact your life.
Precisely. That's exactly it. And I would even add one more thing, that by definition, when you take a step back from your life, let's say, and just decide I'm going to take an acting course, what you're actually doing is playing with your life, because everything else is like literally like making money or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that it is empowering to play, because what play does, I was always amazed. There's an amazing viral video. So this just reminds me of it. There's a terrible scene where a monkey goes to a watering hole somewhere in Africa, and the monkey goes to drink water, and suddenly a crocodile comes out of the water and grabs onto the monkey's head. And the monkey is strong enough that sort of engages in a tug of war. The crocodile is going to drag it into the water, and you feel like it's game over for monkey, right? Because it looks really bad. The crocodile's not going to let go. It can't be worse. And the other monkeys don't do anything. They just watch because they don't know what to do. Anyways, what you see what the monkey does is at first it tries to pull back, but crocodile's bigger. Then it does this amazing thing. It basically tries every angle. It goes here, there, and finally it does this really bewildering thing, which is it moves to almost on top of the crocodile. So it goes right over on top of the crocodile, and that is the weak spot of the jaw. And suddenly its head pops out, and it runs away. And to most people, this is just a video of a monkey surviving a crocodile attack. But to me, I'm like, that's the power of play. Mammals have come to dominate the planet because of that. Because we can look at things from multiple angles. We can try different things and play different roles. And the reptiles of the world are just doing the thing they always did.
I get that, but that's all the positives. Can you simply get lost in those roles and then lose yourself?
Yeah, it's funny. One of the things I debate with people is that there's a lot of emphasis right in these days on authenticity, and I agree. One should be. We know what we would consider like an authentic statement versus an inauthentic one, but I also find that is a confusing and even oppressive concept. Like, so for example, there's a big thing in personal transformation that you should find your authentic self, and I'm like, what does that mean? What is your authentic self? It's as if there's one version of you that is your authentic you, and the other ones are all fake. I don't think that's true. I think that personality is transient and flexible. We adapt and change all the time. That said, there are more authentic states, and often in relation to things, meaning you might say, Albert, I feel like you're being evasive here. You're not being authentic. And because you know me, and I would be like, yeah, you're right. Or I would be like, no, this is true. This is what I really feel. And so in that moment, that is my authentic self, and that as authentic as I can be. Truth is a malleable thing.
Is it hard getting that balance correct? Quite right.
My angle is that like a lot of things, going back to, I think you've pointed out that some of our difficult or oppressive childhood experiences can sometimes later become superpowers. That's a cliche, but I think it's true. And I think my superpower is the awareness that there's a lack of language or understanding about things that we should understand. So for example, when I was a newspaper columnist, that's what I did. I would define things that had not yet been defined. And an example of this is this authenticity debate. I'm like, this idea that you find one authentic self, and that's you. Although that idea in general is useful, that idea is maladaptive and oppressive. People have many authentic selves. It's not a fixed target. So my job is to sort of to challenge that idea, and also to tell people it's okay to play roles. There are many parts of life where people want us to play roles, and it's okay. We don't have to be down on people for being, like one of the biggest insults you can give someone is to say they're a poser. Well, we're all posers. We're power posers.
Oh God, don't say that. That just brings back memories from my youth. I had
Yeah.
a friend. I had a friend who was a bit of a poser,
Yes.
and they used to, when I used to walk past a window shop, and he used to look at himself in the reflection of the shop and whatever, and that affected me because I thought, oh God, he looks like such a prat. I don't want to look like him. So when I grew up, I always, in the heat of the summer, sometimes it was in the mid-30s, I never wore tops that showed my body, muscles, anything like that. And people used to say, oh, you know, you've got a good body, why don't you? And it always went back to that poser thing. So
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Well, I'm guessing what you were probably objecting to is more narcissism then.
yes, exactly. Yeah. I think, no, you know what, now you've said that, you're right. I never thought of it that way. I think you're correct.
Well, it's become fashionable now to challenge, I mean, rightly, that narcissism is not, particularly malignant narcissism. I mean, we've got, you know, it's going to be a big deal this year. The guy who's running to be the president of the United States is most likely a malignant narcissist. Mm-hmm. Malignant narcissists are dangerous people. And what really is special about malignant narcissists is they often create an environment where they excel and those around them are damaged and fail, which is like the last thing you need in a great leader. It's the worst thing.
No, you're totally right. Do you know what? This is a really interesting conversation, you know, especially and you've really helped me from the point of view being able to, you can make roles in your life and it doesn't have to take over you. So there is a balance. And that's a great way to actually deal with the difficult things that you're challenged with in life. And I'm going to look a bit more into that to see how that can challenge me when I'm going up potentially to do speaking, which is something I've got to challenge because I'm told I'm a good speaker. I'm told I'm very good at, you know, engaging with other people, and it's a waste, right? So you've put me in that position now to think in a completely different way, in a more creative way. And I don't want to think too creatively, but otherwise you'll be hypnotizing me. So I'm going to be careful how creative I am.
I just to add to your point, I do a demonstration where well, for example, with public speaking, I demonstrate that you should power pose before or as you hit the stage.
Really?
Meaning what you do is your shoulders should be out, you should take up space, and you should be expansive. Now, it doesn't mean you should be arrogant. You don't walk around like I'm the king of the world. Because I've done tests where if you do the reverse, like if you just look down and you act very humble and you start mumbling into the microphone, people will, I've tested this, people will look at their phones. They will start looking at their phones. And I do it as a game because I start doing it and I say, just about right now, you're going to start looking at your phone. And then I look up and like half the audience is looking at their phones. And I trust it. And then I show that if you came out powerfully, they would not look at their phones. And the explanation is simple. We have expectations at particular times. So when somebody is up on stage as a public speaker, we expect them to command, we don't necessarily want them to be arrogant, but we expect them to command a certain amount of power.
Definitely.
So it is okay to power pose in those moments. I mean, again, it's good if it comes naturally out of you, that you find your confident positions, and then what happens? People pay more attention. It's weird. I can make the same speech. If I make the speech like this, or I make the speech like this, same speech, and it's easier for people to listen to me if I'm in a powerful pose.
Listeners, when he was speaking then, when he says like this, looking down and looking up, so there's a big difference between the physical way that you are when you're posing. So it's very important with eye contact and also, Albert, all these things. The way you're standing, I suppose upright is another positive, Albert, is that correct?
That's right. Basically the rule, like animals on this planet, when they express confidence, I'm talking about almost all animals, take up more space. So, and it can be faked, meaning you could be a small person, but if your fingers are out and your shoulders are out, you are acting like you're taking up space.
Okay.
So it's not so much that you have to take up the space, you just have to act like it.
Yes.
And so and also when I look, so if I look at the floor and I'm making a speech, I'm not taking up a lot of space. If I look towards the back of the hall confidently, I appear to be taking up more space. So that's one of the rules. There's a number of them, but that.
So basically, your emotional content and your physical content, one and the same, is, as you said, when your eyes are looking beyond, that shows confidence and distance and whatever, and then obviously even your hands, very important.
Literally, like, look at this. If I made a speech and my fingers were like this, like, hi, everybody, it doesn't matter how confident I speak.
Yeah, very closed.
Yeah, as opposed to this. Huge
Very
difference. Yeah, and it doesn't, and again, it's not, like you said, you might say, I'm open as in emotionally open, but what really this is confidence. I'm like, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the weird thing about it. It's like these things they're often misunderstood. I was blown away when I did the research on this film. Another crazy thing was the angle at which you look at people changes your perception of them. I mean,
In what way?
If you look at somebody from below,
Right.
you are more likely to think that they are smarter and more powerful. If you look at somebody from above, your opinion changes, and they're the same person. Some of these things are obvious. You could probably figure out why that is, but still, this is interesting.
Very interesting conversation, don't you think, listeners? No two ways about that. So, your latest project at the moment is about to come to fruition when?
So I'm finishing a documentary called Make Orgasms Not War, this crazy film about the idea that we can actually figure out sexual programming. It's not something that we're just stuck with, for the better. And the reason it's called Make Orgasms Not War is there's a bunch of research showing that cultures and societies that are deeply sexually frustrated tend to be more warlike, more violent. And if people, just think about it, if people were having more orgasms, they'd probably be nicer and less inclined to hurt people. So that's why it's an anti-war film. So it's in process right now.
And will it be finished this year, next year?
We're trying to have it done by late fall. There's still lots of, the science is complicated, or interviews.
Okay, so how would that be released?
We're actually deliberately going to it'll probably play festivals, but we're going to make it available online because we feel like it's something that would be most interesting to the online audience, so to speak. So, I mean, you can find bits of it. We have trailers and clips online already. You can look up the 1 minute orgasm, it's there. But I think you're going to have no problem finding it on the internet when it finally comes out.
I can imagine. It's going to be all the rage, I think. Especially when you're behind it, Albert.
Right.
It's never going to be a flop. It's always going to be a talking point, isn't it? It won't be thumbs down. It'll be pure thumbs up, without a doubt, because you do what you think is best and what you think is right, and it's always something different from anybody else. And that's what makes you, any project you undertake, actually. And that's the great thing, actually, is how we evolve as people. Even though we've gone through certain issues as we were growing up, and it were hard and harsh, that's how they brought us to do great things, because of those hard and harsh situations. So as much as it's not nice at the time, it's those experiences that have brought us to do great things. Now, great could be mean in something within the family, or great could be meaning something within the world. It's irrelevant. The point is that we are most creative when we go through certain harsh situations, would you say?
I think you're dead right. And I'll give you clean example is that me being considered a moron, and I mean that literally, that like in America the word moron is very common, and when I made the film Stupidity, one of the breakthrough aspects of the film is I found the source, the very bizarre source of the word moron. I think people think that these words like moron or idiot or imbecile are like ancient terms. Some of them are, but they actually all emanate from the IQ test. The guy who invented the word moron actually was well-meaning. So basically the original IQ test had the lowest point. So if you were the lowest score you could get was idiot, which basically meant you had the intellectual capacities of somebody, I think, between 0 and 2 years old. So that was an idiot. A little bit more from there, maybe 2 to 4, or a little bit older. I mean, I'm not sure I got the ages right. Was the imbecile?
Okay.
An imbecile smarter than an idiot. So this guy who is I think a psychologist in New Jersey said that not everybody, and he was dealing often with a population of people that were intellectually challenged. He said, not all these people are idiots or imbeciles. Some of them are something else. They're a little more intelligent. And so he invented this word moron.
Interesting.
And he meant it as a kind of compliment that they're not as bad as imbeciles. But then this was integrated into the test that when people arrived, vast amounts of immigrants arrived at Ellis Island in New York City, they would be given this test. And one of the questions was given to the inspectors, is this person an idiot, imbecile, or a moron? Because then they could be turned back. If they were a moron, they could be turned back. So the twist is, these words that were meant as scientific terms originally entered the language as the worst insults. They were originally scientific, or allegedly scientific
based.
Yeah, an imbecile was not an insult. It was just, that's your intellectual level. And same with moron. But then moron. So anyways, when I made Stupidity, I was considered a moron at certain points in my life, just by some people. The weird twist is later in life, I became the guy who explained the history of the word moron. And it's strange meaning, because there's a town called Vineland, New Jersey, where the guy who invented moron is from, and the word comes from this one town. I went to the town and I asked people, how do you feel about the fact that your town invented the word moron? And people said all different things, but somebody said we should have a parade.
A day called Moron.
Moron Day. That's what the guy says in the film.
What a classic, Moron Day.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is so interesting. Well, Albert, I think what we'll do is wrap it up, because I can stay here for hours talking with you.
Yeah, me too. Likewise.
So it was a beautiful time, and thank you. We've delved into so many different things.
They seem like disparate topics, but there are some I hope there's some unifying themes.
There are reasons why we spoke about them, without doubt. How can people get hold of you if they need to speak to you about more about
morons?
About morons, yeah, exactly. Because as you're the master of that. So
right.
How can they contact you?
If they're interested in the documentaries, the one that is fully online and it is free is Laughology. And actually, Laughology is free online about laughter, and the one about embodied cognition, You Are What You Act, are actually on. You can probably find them on YouTube. On purpose, we put them out free. You can pay for them too if you want, but you can also find them free. But then, if you want to talk to me as a hypnotist, I am hypnologist, hypnologist.net, hypnologist.net. And if you want to talk to me about laughter stuff, I am laughologist.info. Those are my two websites I use the most. So I'm there.
And listeners, I'll have all the information down below. So if you have a look at the description, you'll see all the information, so you can contact him. And he's definitely the person. If you want to be a moron, he's the man.
Or noble morons. Yeah. Yes.
We can be morons all together, so that will be interesting.
Moron day.
It can't, yeah, exactly. Who knows? We may go to moron week.
Yeah, moron week.
That'll be a
Like I
party.
say, in America, every day is moron day.
Well, Albert, look, listen, thank you for having your time and coming on with me. I know it wasn't, it was a last minute thing. We only spoke, a couple of days ago. So I appreciate your time and give me, I really appreciate that. And I hope another time we can speak again, and just especially when that film comes out, and we can talk in depth about that.
If you want to talk about the film, we'll be that for sure. Absolutely.
Beautiful. All right. And with that said, everybody, I hope you have a beautiful week, and sayonara.